The Legend of Good Humour and the King, a modern classic folktale by Wesley R. Ivins. Prosperity. In a time long forgotten and still remembered, there once was and was not the great and wonderful kingdom of prosperity. The rich countryside of prosperity was like no other. The very finest orchards, vineyards, and woodlands were all found in prosperity. Man and animal lived in harmony with one another, and cruelty was unheard of. Life in prosperity was joyous, and sadness was unknown. King Generous, along with Queen Charity, ruled over prosperity, which consisted of 4 boroughs: plenty, enough, share, and abundance, each one vital and working together for the good of all in the kingdom. Plenty was the agricultural centre. The vast countryside and rich soil produced the very finest of olives, grapes, grains, fruits, and vegetables. The most mouth-watering delicacies found anywhere were known to come from the land of plenty. The highest quality cheeses, breads, and wines all were found there. Enough was the hub of prosperity's craftsmen. The very best in merchandise was made there. The exceptional skill of craftsmanship and extraordinary quality of items from Enough were known across all the lands. Share was the educational and spiritual centre of prosperity. People from all across the kingdom would come to Share to study, philosophize, and discuss the wonders of life. The sacred scripts and scrolls of knowledge were all found in the library of Share, which was always open. Abundance was the market hub in prosperity. Diverse folks would come from kingdoms far and wide to barter and trade for the goods, services, and knowledge produced across the kingdom of prosperity. And so it was, through trading in abundance, prosperity flourished. In the very heart of prosperity sat Splendour Castle, a true wonder to behold. Diamond and emerald chandeliers hung from the ceilings, while marble floors graced golden walls adorned with ivory carvings. The courtyard of the castle hosted the most exotic and beneficial plant life found anywhere. Even so, with all its riches, King Generous and Queen Charity ruled prosperity with love. Indeed, Splendour Castle was a magnificent testament to that, shining joy into the heart of all in the kingdom. As it were, in time, Queen Charity became with child. Soon, a male heir named Good Humour was born, and the kingdom rejoiced. A custom for royal heirs in prosperity was 3 years under tutorship of the finest scholars and priests of Share. This was followed by a kingdom-wide celebration in which people from all lands were invited to attend. At the end of the celebration came the royal christening, and so a decree was sent out to all the lands announcing the birth of Good Humour and the pending celebration. Misery. As all these events were unfolding, outside the kingdom of prosperity, in a dismal land, well beyond the valley of shadows, far past the forests of fear, and across the mountains of sorrow, lived a wicked and vile man named Deception, who sat ruling his kingdom, Misery. Misery was a hopelessly dry and tortuous land, where darkness and pain were common, murder and robbery were constant, joy was unheard of, and laughter was unknown. At Deception's side was his counsel and servant, Suspicion. Together they held Misery in an oppressive cast-iron grip. Deception had long heard of prosperity and vowed to claim it for himself. Time and time again, he could be heard telling Suspicion, "I will have prosperity. I will have it, or no one will." But the means of how to accomplish this had thus far escaped him. Adding to his frustration, Suspicion had been no help to his plotting. When the day came that the decree of Good Humour's birth and christening celebration arrived at Misery, a sinister idea came to Deception and a plot was hatched. That very night, he and Suspicion began their journey to prosperity. Over a year's trek separated the lands of Misery and Prosperity, so Deception knew they must hurry. With fury across the mountains of sorrow they rode. Onward they pressed through the haunting forest of fear. Then around the valley of shadows, until at last they were at the threshold of prosperity. They had arrived just days before the celebration. So they set camp for the night and Deception finished, plotting the final details to their scheme. Along the course of their journey, Deception had gathered much information about prosperity by bushwhacking many an unwary traveller. Now the more he thought about the nature of prosperity, the more enraged he became, for he realised a vile man such as himself could never really possess prosperity. So he purposed even more so to destroy it. This he mused to himself most of the night in a restless sleep. As they broke camp the following morning, Deception instructed Suspicion of his role in the plot. "You will remain silent once we enter prosperity," Deception said, looking at Suspicion with an evil glare. He made it very clear that Suspicion was to act as his servant and nothing more. He swore Suspicion to silence at pain of a most gruesome death. It was just before the noon hour when Deception and Suspicion entered the borough of Abundance. Riding past all those happy people gave Deception a sickening feeling. Yet he somehow managed to crack a crooked smirk, and the good folks of prosperity were none the wiser to his intent. The first order of business was to secure lodging, so they quickly found an inn and settled for the day. Once again, Deception railed Suspicion, instructing him to remain silent and not to leave their room until it was time for them to depart. His only duty was to prepare their meals and tend to Deception's needs. He was purposely left out of vital parts of Deception's plan. Deception without suspicion. The morning came early and Deception saddled up and set out across the landscape. He wanted to get a solid layout of the terrain and a feel for the folk in prosperity. It was one day before the celebration, and he needed to make sure he had his plan in perfect order. As he made his way across the countryside, he stopped many a folk, asking them questions about the kingdom and the castle, always managing to choke out that half-smirk, even though the goodness of the folk was a stench unto his soul. And most assuredly, because Deception was without suspicion, no one seemed concerned with the curious questions of this odd stranger. They just politely answered him and busily went about their preparations for the upcoming event. As Deception continued scouting the kingdom, he took an evil pride in himself, for so far his plan was coming together perfectly. That evening, back at the inn, Deception mulled over what he had learned. He had the layout of the land. He knew the ins and outs of the castle. He had been without suspicion. And just as importantly, He had discovered that the celebration and christening was followed by a day of rest, a day where no work at all was to be done in prosperity.
Oh, this is even better than I imagined,
Deception quietly thought to himself. The simple ignorance of these folk was perfectly fitted for his plan. The celebration was bizarre to him, but the thought of a day without labour was so alien to Deception he could hardly fathom it. Yet it was to be so, and he knew just how to turn that to his advantage. Joy and pain. Oh, the noise! Oh, the noise! Deception woke the following day to what seemed unbearable noise. Laughter, cheer, goodwill, and toasts. What pain it was to his mind. That day was what seemed an eternity to Deception. On and on it went. He knew he could never venture out of his room at the inn on this day. No, but after the celebration, then he would have his way.
Very soon prosperity will feel the touch of anguish,
Deception mumbled to himself. Such joviality was utter madness to Deception, and strengthened his resolve to destroy prosperity even more. The only thing he could find comfort in was abusing suspicion. Meanwhile, the people were all without care. They danced, played games, exchanged stories, and ate. This was a celebration like no other before it. Excitement filled the air, and joy echoed across the entire kingdom well into the evening. Then a calm came over the festivities as good humour was brought forth for his christening. The procession was led by Queen Charity, holding the boy's hand in hers. Gradually they moved forward towards the altar, waving to the crowd. The most respected elders of prosperity followed in behind, and flowers were tossed by children. All the while musicians and mimes weaved and mingled among them. What a glorious sight it was. King Generous, his eyes beaming with pride, stood waiting at the altar, along with the priests and scholars who had instructed the young lad these past 3 years. As the crowd watched with anticipation, good humour was brought up to the altar and the royal oaths were read. The people cheered at each stanza. One by one, the scholars and priest all gave their blessings to the boy, each one bringing even more joyous cheers from the people. Then came the christening time, and the royal seal was placed behind the right ear of the lad. Afterward, King Generous embraced the boy, came forward, thanked the heavens and the kingdom, and bid them all to rest. Quickly a peaceful quiet fell over the multitude as each one returned to their homes.
Finally,
Deception muttered to himself.
soon prosperity would know the touch of anguish. Yes, very soon.
It was just after midnight when Deception made his move. The kingdom was sound asleep as he quietly rode toward the castle.
Trust at the gate.
At the entrance to Splendor Castle stood 2 guards, Righteous and Virtue, who noticed the lone rider approaching the castle gate.
Who goes there?
They bellowed in unison.
Fear not, dear fellows. It's just I, a prophet sent for by the king. And what business does the king have with a prophet at this hour, when all is at rest?
They asked him.
A matter of grave importance concerning the child, good humour. The king bid me come at once. I have travelled far, and I just now arrive. I hope I am not too late.
Deception said smoothly. The guards looked at the stranger and then at each other. Suddenly, trust. The gatekeeper opened the outer gate, saying,
"Let him pass."
and so Deception dismounted and entered the courtyard, making his way toward the castle.
"Perfect. Perfect,"
Deception whispered to himself as he approached the main entrance to the castle. Then, giving a phony nod to Trust, he scurried inside. Slowly and methodically, he went quietly creeping room to room until at last he had found it. Peering in, he saw the young lad sleeping contentedly in his bed. Then, quick as a fox, he gagged, bound, and covered Good Humour with a gunny sack. The poor child never even had a chance to utter a peep. Quickly, Deception tied the bag closed, tossed it over his shoulder, and headed out of the castle. His heart was beating so hard, he thought it would wake the entire kingdom as he approached the guards once again.
"Hold fast,"
Righteous commanded. "What have tucked ye in the bag?" inquired Virtue. Hearing this, the boy began to buck wildly inside the sack.
Now, friends, no need to be alarmed,"
said Deception.
"It is just a baby goat the king has given me as a gift. For indeed he was well pleased with my prophecy,"
he continued. "I have it secured such for it would never keep up with me on the long journey I have ahead. This is so for its own safety as well as a speedy return."
Deception concluded.
"Very well, Sir Prophet. Carry on," said Trust. Thus the guards let him pass. So hurriedly, Deception mounted his horse and rode, his heart racing and pushing him forward. It was not until well into the next day and many miles outside Prosperity that he realized he had left suspicion behind. Angered with himself for his oversight, he knew returning to fetch him was impossible without being caught. So he continued on back to Misery without him. Tears in Prosperity. The following day there arose a clamour from the castle.
"Good Humour? Good Humour? Where is my Good Humour?"
Queen Charity exclaimed with a panic, rushing to the king's study and bursting in.
"Our Good Humour is gone. He is not in his room,"
she lamented.
"Come now. Be calm, my dear. I am sure he is somewhere in the castle. He is a young lad and has been away learning in Share these past few years. Surely he is just having a look around. Certainly you know how curious young boys are."
King Generous gently reassured her.
"Here now. Let's go seek him together, shall we?"
So the two of them searched the castle room by room, but Good Humour was nowhere to be found. When it was fully realized, Good Humour was not in the castle. A party was organized, and a kingdom-wide search began. That's how it was on this day that an uneasy feeling fell over Prosperity for the very first time. Another very unusual thing did occur later that evening. The search party had yielded no sign of Good Humour, and it was approaching nightfall. It was then that anguish embraced Queen Charity, and she began to weep, something that before then was unknown in Prosperity.
"My Good Humour is gone. My Good Humour is gone. How shall I continue without my Good Humour?"
the Queen muttered as she wept. The King, seeing her with anguish and feeling rather awkward, remained strong, saying,
"Oh, my dear Charity, what strangeness this is indeed. But rest assured, we shall find him in the morrow. Even now, the party still searches. Rest now, my love. All is well. We shall see."
Yet, even as he spoke these words, inside he felt unsure for the first time in his life. It was on the third day after the disappearance of Good Humour. The search party arrived at the inn. There they found Suspicion sitting quietly at a table. Suspicion knew he had been left behind, but he feared the wrath of Deception more than anything that this kingdom could possibly do to him. These search party leaders are naive and gullible. Steering them away from deception and misery will be a simple thing to do, Suspicion quietly thought to himself. Coming to his table, the leaders questioned him. Sir, the kingdom has lost Good Humour. The Queen weeps and the King is adamant we must find him. Have you a clue? Suspicion raised his gaze slowly. Aye, perhaps, he said with a crackling voice. Sir, do tell, we must know, they insisted. With a piercing cold stare, Suspicion began. It was a day ago I saw a young lad wandering north towards the Hills of Truth. I thought nothing of it then, as a rider soon came, took up the lad and rode on towards them. The crest was that of the Kingdom of Honour. I could clearly see the marking on the coat worn by the horse. Certainly, this could not be the lad you seek, yet perhaps it is. He finished. Thank you, kind sir, said Gullible, and quickly they departed. Suspicion just nodded as they left. Naive immediately sent word to the king, and a troop was dispatched towards Honour that very day. Many weeks had passed. The troop, indeed, had reached Honour, but had found no sign of Good Humour, not one trace. Meanwhile, the Queen, in the grip of anguish, wept herself into a deep sleep and could not be awoken. At the loss of Good Humour and the plight of Queen Charity, King Generous became despondent. The Kingdom of Prosperity had never faced anything like this before and was in turmoil. The borders into prosperity had all been sealed and all trading in abundance had ceased. Then sadness rushed across the kingdom. It was as if a dam had burst. Weeping became so common that in time their tears formed a river of lament which flowed out of the kingdom and down into the valley of shadows. Life in misery. Several months had passed now, and Deception was well on his way back to misery. After setting camp one evening, Deception fixed himself a plate of food. Then motioning to the boy and teasing him with it, he growled, What is your name? Staring intently at the child. Good Humour. Good Humour of Prosperity, the child said with a timid smile. No! Shouted Deception, tossing his plate of food at the child. You shall go hungry this night, and every night, until you learn your name. Prosperity does not exist, and you are not Good Humour. You are cunning. Cunning of misery, Deception said, snarling at him. Deception had no intention to do away with the child. He needed the boy. Even in his vile heart, he had to admit that. Since Suspicion had been left behind, Deception purposed to raise the boy as his heir to misery. The long journey would give him ample time to condition the child. Soon all thought of his life in prosperity would be forgotten. Deception was very skilled at the crafts of persuasion and manipulation. The young mind of a child was certainly no match for him. Yes, Deception's plan indeed was coming to pass. Once back in misery, nothing would stop it. As the years passed, Cunning learned of life in misery. Life in misery was hard and brutal. He had realized that indeed he must be cunning in order to survive. Deception had him trained in all the arts of deceit and wickedness. Cunning, being very adept, quickly caught on to all he was taught. Although Cunning had adjusted to misery, there was something that haunted him. It was a recurring dream, one he did not understand, yet it relentlessly visited him. It was of a beautiful woman and a very strange thing, something called laughter. Cunning had no idea who this woman was, what this laughter was, or what it meant. But he knew he should never mention this dream to anyone in misery. He felt it meant something, this dream, but what it could mean perplexed him. The fall to desolation. It had been 10 long years since the disappearance of good humour. The kingdom of prosperity had not fared his loss well. Prosperity was no more like it once was. It had fallen into desolation. Being without Queen Charity and the king, becoming despondent, had taken its toll. What once was known as the beautiful kingdom of prosperity was now known across all the lands as desolation. Apathy and neglect were consuming the kingdom, and the boroughs slowly decayed. Making matters worse, suspicion had become accepted in desolation, and over the course of time he met innocence. Suspicion was at once smitten by her charm, and she was enamoured of his wit. Soon they were wed. Alas for poor innocence, she passed during the birth of the twins, doubt and confusion, leaving suspicion alone to raise them. A precocious pair those two were, doubt and confusion. The birds of mischief and mayhem were always around them. Everywhere they went, trouble followed. Suspicion could do nothing to tame the boys. Finally, at the scene of a most nasty event, charges were raised against the boys, and they were brought before the king. The folk cried for their death. Oh, how far the kingdom had fallen! The king, even though despondent, still had compassion, one of his closest guards. He understood the death of the boys would serve no purpose. A valuable lesson had been learned. Doubt and confusion must be contained and watched carefully. So the king had them bound and set under compassion's guard. At the confinement of his sons, suspicion went wild, madly roaming the countryside. Eventually he fled off into a dark wilderness. After that, oftentimes he could be heard as a faint whispering echo, but he was never seen again. How King Despondent missed his good humour and longed for his beloved Charity. If only he could laugh, but laughter eluded him. One day, while travelling the countryside and seeing desolation as it was, the king could take no more. He knew in his heart he must find a way to laugh, or the kingdom would completely crumble, even what little there was left of it. And what is a king without a kingdom? Yes, he knew very well he must find a way to laugh, or he too would be no more. A king's decree. Although desolation was crumbling, the king still maintained a great deal of wealth, since Charity slept. So, in a breath of hope, he sent out a decree across all the lands. He decreed that whoever could make him laugh, to that one he would give 1/2 the riches of his kingdom, which was a great deal compared to the possessions of many. Then came the people, jesters, pranksters, mimes, musicians, dancers and charmers, the best of all the lands. For years they came day after day, but none could make the king laugh.
It is no use.
The king thought to himself.
For years they have come, and none has prevailed to make me laugh. Should that I die now, and rest with my queen.
It was then Faith entered the kingdom and bid the king's counsel. Appearing before the king, Faith said this:
O once great King Generous, ruler of prosperity, now despondent ruler of desolation, I come, with a truth of heart, take heed, for one is coming that shall indeed make thee laugh.
How can this be?
exclaimed the king.
I have seen all the best and none prevailed. Now few even come, and they have little talent. It seems you give me false hope. I have grown tired and weary, and now only wish to rest with my queen.
You may do as you wish, yet as sure as I stand before you, one shall come. A pity it would be you not here to greet him.
Faith said with a look of true concern on his face.
Oh, indeed.
Said the king.
And when shall this one come? I bid you tell me now.
The king grumbled curiously.
Of the day and hour I know not, that has not been revealed. Yet, as sure as the sun sets and rises again, one shall come. Bid me stay with you, and you shall see with thine own eyes, and know with thine own heart.
Faith said unto the king.
Very well. I see the hope in your eyes, and feel the truth in your words. Although I know it is useless, I bid you stay,
replied the king. And so Faith began to abide in desolation. Cunning's journey. It was Cunning's 19th birthday, and the rites of passage to manhood were upon him. At that age, all young men in misery were cast out. To prove themselves worthy, they must not return until they had something of great value to offer the kingdom. It was in this way, through treachery and deceit, deception had amassed a large fortune and kept the people in misery. Cunning was well prepared for his journey. He had been instructed by the most notorious of villains and scoundrels, deception himself included. No one in misery could match his skills of persuasion. There were times when even deception wondered at him. As Cunning packed for his journey, he wondered what he should find. Could it be this laughter that haunted his dreams? No, he had to cast that idea aside. No one in misery would see any value in laughter, whatever it was in its strangeness. And so he proceeded to begin his quest. It was not long before Cunning was at the foothills of the mountains of sorrow. Looking upward, he remembered what deception had told him.
Watch out for the giant Woe. Should he catch you, you will be tossed into the pit of disparity until he decides to consume you.
He shuddered at the thought and carefully began to climb. Off in the distance, he could hear the screams and moans from those who had been snared by the giant Woe and cast in the pit. He knew he must not be caught. Suddenly, falling rocks startled him.
The giant,
he thought to himself, and quickly crouched behind a large boulder. His heart raced as the sound of footsteps and falling stones drew near. Then, as quickly as it had begun, silence prevailed once again. Even the screams and moaning had stopped. He held his breath. An instant later, she appeared. Cunning popped out from behind the boulder, saying,
"You're no giant."
"Shh." She motioned to him, pointing upward, and pulled him back behind the boulder.
"Who are you?"
Cunning whispered to her. She seemed to him as a rogue, sort of a woman, with a strange and simple type of beauty. He could tell right away she had wit.
I am common sense,
she whispered, and covered his mouth before he could speak again.
I have escaped the giant Woe and know the way across the mountain,
she said as she slowly removed her hand from his mouth.
I feel perhaps I should not trust you, yet I shall show you the way across the mountain, should you spare me.
Cunning stared at her with amazement and said, "I am cunning, and I shall spare you, should you show me the way." Indeed, even though she did not know it, he meant her no harm. And so it was that common sense and cunning began to journey together. They somehow complemented one another intuitively. Soon, quite a strong bond was developed between them. After a few months of travel, they stood at the edge of the forest of fear. It was approaching nightfall, so they set camp and began to talk. Cunning had begun to understand common sense, and she was amused by him. "What is laughter?" he asked, as if he knew and she did not, looking at him in astonishment.
You do not know what laughter is.
She said. "Sure I do. I was testing you," Cunning quickly replied, feeling proud of himself.
No, you don't. I could see it in your eyes. You are clueless.
She began to laugh.
This is laughter.
She said, laughing even louder. Feeling a bit confounded, Cunning confessed and told her of his dream. In all his life, that was the first time anyone other than deception had gotten the better of him, and somehow that changed him. He was not sure how, but he could feel it. Something was different now. As he was feeling and thinking these things, she told him of a decree by a king called Despondent, who could not laugh, how all who had tried to make him laugh had failed, and what was at stake. Later, he pondered all she had told him as she slept. He decided he was going to be the one to make the king laugh. After all, he was cunning. He would find a way, even though he had no ideas as to how. Half a kingdom's riches was a grand prize, and certainly deception would approve of that. He would find a way. Yes, he would, he mused to himself as he fell off into sleep, a coward and fear. In the morning they proceeded into the forest of fear. It was very dark and ominous. Peril lurked behind every tree, so they walked back to back, looking in all directions. In this way, nothing was able to catch them off guard. They took turns, one in front and one in rear, until they had reached a clearing at the very centre of the forest. They decided this would be a good place to make camp. They could build a fire and ward off anything that might come out of the woods at night. Snap!
What was that? Did you hear that?
Common Sense turned to Cunning, asking, "Yes, it came from just up ahead," Cunning replied. Slowly on guard, they both moved forward. Shh. Cunning placed his finger to his lips with one hand and pointed ahead with the other. "It's coming from right over there. See that rustling in the high grass?"
Yes.
said Common Sense. Suddenly it sprang forth.
"Don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me."
It whimpered. It was a frail, drawn-up figure of what looked like used to be a man. It stood there trembling.
"Please don't kill me."
It said, and threw itself at Cunning's feet. Cunning jumped back, ready to strike.
Relax.
Said Common Sense, looking at Cunning.
I have heard of this one before.
It just lay there at Cunning's feet, trembling and whimpering.
Cunning, meet coward. That is your name, right?
She said, looking down at the pitiful creature. Coward gazed up at Common Sense and squeaked out and mumbled.
"Yes."
"What did you say?" Cunning asked. Coward looked down, quivering, saying,
"Yes, That is my name. I am Coward. Please don't hurt me.
Common Sense laughed, saying, "Oh, coward, get up off your knees. If we intend to hurt you, it would be so done already,"
I don't know about that.
said Coward.
This could be some sort of trick.
He muttered and cringed away. "Calm down, you pitiful thing. I am cunning. Had I intent to trick you, you certainly would not know. But I assure you, as Common Sense is my witness, I mean you no harm. Now get up and stop cowering at my feet," said Cunning. Slowly Coward stood fixing his gaze on Common Sense for assurance. She winked as if to put him at ease. "Why do you just sit in the middle of the clearing trembling so?" Cunning asked.
I can see in every direction from there. If I see something approaching, I can hide in the tall grass until it passes.
Coward replied. "Nonsense, we found you," said Cunning.
True, you did indeed, but you are cunning and Common Sense is with you. How is it? You should not discover me.
Common Sense looked over at Cunning, saying,
He has a point, you know.
Cunning nodded with agreement. "How did you get here, this far into the forest of fear?" Cunning asked.
I was not always as you see me now. Long ago, I was bold and rode with courage. We came this far into the forest together, and like you, decided this would be a good spot to camp the night. As we sat watching, there came a strong bellow and blew out our fire. Courage set out after it and never returned. Sitting alone in the darkness, fear overcame me, and I have been here since. I dare not leave until courage returns."
Coward explained. "Very well," Cunning said, looking at Common Sense, and she nodded.
It is settled then. You shall camp with us this night. No harm will befall you.
Coward agreed, but kept his distance from them both throughout the night. They awoke the next morning to find Coward hiding in the tall grass again. Common Sense looked at Cunning.
Let me go talk with him.
She said.
Perhaps he will see he is safe with us.
Reluctantly he agreed. Cunning really did not want to take on another companion, but he had come to respect Common Sense, so she went to him.
Coward, we are leaving. We bid you come with us.
No, I cannot. I must wait for courage,
He replied. Common Sense sighed.
Look, it could be ages before courage returns. I heard tales he was off chasing dragons somewhere in the highlands of fantasy. Certainly, you shall not last long here. Eventually, fear will totally consume you. Look at yourself. Be bold again. Come along with us, won't you?
She reasoned.
No, I shall not.
Coward said.
You did not harm me last night, true, but this is a new day, and your intent may have changed. The more you insist I join you, the more I fear it has. No, I must remain here and await courage.
Common Sense turned away and returned to Cunning.
It's no use. He is hopeless. Let's get out of here.
She sighed. So they left Coward sitting in the middle of the clearing to be consumed by fear. Cunning reflected on how she had tried to help him. He knew Coward would not listen to Common Sense. If only he could have been bold again. Nothing more was spoke of him as they made their way out of the forest. Impatience with faith.
I am tired. Summon faith.
King Despondent told a messenger. Faith appeared before the king.
How may I assist you?
he asked.
How long has it been now since you came here, Faith? Years? I lose track.
The king asked.
It has been a time and a time.
Faith replied.
Yes, indeed, a very long time. And where is this one to make me laugh? No one comes. Day after day, I await at your bidding, Faith, and I grow impatient. I am tired of waiting. Indeed, it seems you have given me false hope. How much longer shall I endure this notion of yours? I have seen with mine own eyes, and I see no one comes.
O king, I have not given false hope to you, even as we speak that one draws near.
Faith assured the king.
You know this, yet you know not the hour or day of his coming. How shall I believe this, when no one comes? No one. Look for yourself. The people have all departed. No one could make me laugh. They all tried. There are none left.
The king said to Faith.
'Tis true, king, there are none there. Eyes can see that.
Faith said and continued.
However, it is what lies beyond the eyes, from which truth springs forth. Consider the sun. Your eyes do not see it at night, yet it comes each morn. Is that not a truth? What about the seasons? They come and go, and would so without eyes to witness them. We plant in spring in hopes for summer and a harvest. What compels us so? We have no guarantee summer will come, yet it does, and we harvest from that which we sow. Do not allow your eyes to cloud the truth within. Believe and ye shall see.
The king sighed.
Very well, Faith. You have renewed a spirit of hope in my heart for a time. I shall await in hope. I bid you stay a bit longer.
Wise indeed, king, for in truth one does come.
Faith said and returned to his chamber. With anticipation, the king sat staring out a window at the courtyard entrance for the one to arrive.
Soon.
He thought.
I hope he arrives soon.
The Valley of Shadows. Sometime after passing through the Forest of Fear, an idea came to Cunning. He stopped in his tracks.
What's the matter?
Common Sense asked. Cunning stared at her. I know what I must do, he said. I must hurry to the Kingdom of Desolation. I don't have it all completely figured out yet, but I am going to make that king laugh, sure as my name is Cunning. I have a plan. What is the quickest way there from here? Time is of the essence. He was sure Common Sense would know. She looked at him with a serious concern.
There are 2 ways.
She said, falling silent. 2 ways? Very well. Then which is the quickest? Do tell. Cunning pressed. Taking a deep breath, she said,
The fastest way is through the Valley of Shadows.
Well, then that's the route we shall take, Cunning asserted.
Wait, you don't understand.
She said, What is it? What do I not understand? Out with it, Cunning quipped.
No one passes through the Valley of Shadows and returns. No one. It's never been done before. Never.
She said with a worrisome look.
We must go around it. It's only a month's longer journey that way.
You know I am Cunning. After all this time, we have journeyed together. Certainly you must. Whatever is in the Valley of Shadows, I shall outwit it. Come now, let's go.
I cannot,
she said, looking sadly at him. Well then, I suppose this is where we part company, he said, realizing there were some places Common Sense would not go, and the Valley of Shadows was one. Let's camp here tonight and bid farewell in the morrow, Cunning said. That night, Common Sense pleaded with Cunning to go around the Valley of Shadows, but he would not hear of it. An agreement was reached that she would go on around the valley to Desolation, and meet up with him there. Common Sense was not happy with this arrangement. She worried for Cunning, yet she accepted he must go his own path. Common Sense was already awake when Cunning wiped the sleep from his eyes the following morning.
I must tell you something,
She began.
There is a tale of one who did make it through the valley long, long ago. I did not tell you this last night in hopes to dissuade you, but since you have slept on it, I shall now. I can see in your eyes your resolve has not changed. This one who made it through the Valley of Shadows was called Wisdom. As the tale has it, most folk looked upon Wisdom as foolish and perhaps mad. Wisdom spoke of a strange and dangerous wraith of illusions who dwells at the lake of inner reflection, in the very heart of the Valley of Shadows. The story goes that while passing through the valley, this wraith compels one to gaze into the lake. There is no way to avoid this.
She continued.
Then, upon gazing into the lake of inner reflection, the wraith comes with visions that drive one mad, causing them to fumble around hopelessly in the valley forever. It is said, Wisdom knew the only way to overcome the wraith. One had to face one's true self. But that is just a legend. No one has ever seen this Wisdom, yet the tales remain. Since that time, only few have dared go into the Valley of Shadows, and none have returned.
Looking at Cunning, she sighed as a tear fell from her eye.
I pray ye find this wisdom, dear Cunning.
She finished. Cunning had sat silently listening to all she told him. In all the time they had travelled together. Common Sense had never steered him wrong. He could not explain it, at least not in a way she would understand. There was something inside him driving him to go through that valley. He knew he had to take that route, even if it was the most dangerous. We best get moving, Cunning said. And so they headed out. Later that afternoon, their paths separated. Well, I guess this is it for now, Cunning said with a half smile. Indeed, since that eve outside the Forest of Fear, something had changed in him, and even a half smile was proof.
Godspeed,
said Common Sense. Fare ye well, and Godspeed until we meet in desolation, Cunning replied, and they parted ways. It was well past noon the following day when Cunning stood looking down into the Valley of Shadows. The thick overgrowth and mist made it difficult to make out any trail or path. He paced back and forth atop a hill looking for what might be the best place to enter. He thought about all Common Sense had told him, and he was missing her now. He wondered how she was faring and who she may run into along her path. He scratched his head.
What is this sentiment?
He thought to himself.
This is no time to be going soft.
He reprimanded himself.
Focus, he murmured. After an hour or so of scouting, he realized there was no good way into the valley, so he pulled back some vines from a tree and entered. As soon as he set foot in the valley, he could feel it. The wraith was already at work on his mind. He turned back to look where he had entered, but all he could see was the mist and the thick overgrowth that seemed to choke out the light. He knew then that even if he wanted to, he could not turn back. Forward he pressed deeper into the valley. As he moved along, he noticed something strange about the faint traces of shadows he could see in the dim light. They were moving and weaving as if in some kind of intertwining dance. Not only that they were somehow pulling him along,
With each step he took, he could feel the influence of the wraith becoming stronger. He realized why common sense would not come this way. There was no escape. The power of the wraith was far stronger than he anticipated, and he knew that cleverness would be ineffective against it. He was committed now. He had no choice. He must go to the lake of inner reflection.
Cunning of misery, the lake calls you. Come to the lake.
It was so strong in his mind, it was almost audible. His feet moved almost against his will. The more he fought it, the stronger it became. He closed his eyes, and the images of those who had been lost in the valley confronted him. He could see them. They all seemed to be searching for something. They groped at him. Quickly he opened his eyes, and he was standing before the lake. He dropped to his knees and covered his face with his hands.
You must look. You must look. The wraith of illusions has found you. You must look. Look and see, they said, lunging towards him.
He pulled his hands away from his face. He could feel the power of the wraith. It was all around him and moving through him. The lake began to bubble.
Cunning of misery, see your inner reflection.
He could not help himself. He was transfixed, staring directly into the lake. Then came the reflections. Every evil and treacherous thing he had ever done in his life of misery confronted him.
See yourself, cunning. See what you really are.
The images washed over him one by one. Horrible, terrible images. It was maddening. He wanted to run. He reached deep into himself for every bit of strength he had, but he was overwhelmed. He felt himself drifting off into a dark nothingness. Then it came, the one image he never understood. It was that beautiful woman, and she was laughing. He understood then.
No,
he said. These images are not who I am. They are all illusions except one. Wraith, hear me now. I am not cunning of misery. I have found my true self. I am good humour of prosperity. Suddenly the sun burst forth, and a beautiful woman stood before him, beaming with light. She was not the woman he had seen in his mind. This one before him now was unearthly. Who are you? He asked in awesome amazement.
I am the Fae of the Lake. Only those pure of heart see me in my true form, as you do now.
I appear to those who live in illusion as an illusion. I am also known as the Wraith of Illusion. You have done well, good Humour. You saw the truth in yourself. Now go and fulfill your destiny. Suddenly, he was standing outside the Valley of Shadows at the bank of the River of Lament, with a very clear idea of how he was going to make the king laugh. He understood that everything that had happened in his life was to bring him to where he was right now. He must rely on all of it, every lesson. All he had learned as cunning everything he gained from common sense, and also the truth he had discovered about good humour. Cunning's proposal. Following the river of lament, it only took 2 days to reach desolation once outside the Valley of Shadows. During that time, Cunning perfected his plan to make the king laugh. A messenger approached the king. "Sire, there is a one Cunning of Misery who bids your counsel. He claims he can make you laugh and has come to claim his treasure."
Summon Faith at once.
The king ordered.
How may I help you?
Faith asked, appearing before the king.
Is this the one? This Cunning of Misery? Is it he who will make me laugh? Tell me, I must know.
The king demanded.
O king, I have been with you this long, and yet you still do not understand. I know not who or when this one shall come, only that he shall. When will you believe?
Faith said.
Enough of this cryptic talk. I shall see this last one, and I am finished. Then I shall rest with my queen. Cunning of Misery. He thinks he shall make me laugh, does he? Cunning of Misery. Cunning of Misery.
The king babbled, storming out of his chamber and down to the greeting room.
Send in the visitor.
The king instructed, sitting and holding his scepter. Cunning appeared before the king.
So you think ye shall make me laugh, do you? What special talent have ye? I have seen the best of them all, you know, and they all have failed. What makes you think you shall prevail? Do tell. Cunning of Misery.
The king said mockingly. Cunning began, "O king, I do not think I shall make you laugh."
What?
The king interrupted.
You do not think you can make me laugh? Then why are you wasting my time?
He bellowed. "Please hear me out, dear king," Cunning replied. "I do not think I shall make you laugh. I know I shall," Cunning said confidently.
I see. You know you shall make me laugh. Well, get on with it. Then I am tired.
The king grumbled, tapping his fingers impatiently. "Very well," said Cunning. "You have said you will give half your riches to the one who can make you laugh. Is this true?" Cunning asked of the king.
Don't try my patience, boy. You know very well this is true, or you would not be here now. So get on with it.
The king said, obviously irritated. "Indeed," said Cunning. "But first I have a proposal for you, dear king," Cunning brazenly proclaimed.
What is this insolence? A proposal for me from you? Why should I entertain any such folly, especially from a Cunning of Misery, or whatever you are?
The king fumed in full-blown anger. "No reason other than, what do you have to lose, right? King, I propose this."
Cunning began before the king could speak again.
"I shall indeed make you laugh. I am most certain of that. But if you are right and I fail, then you shall give me your entire kingdom," Cunning said, and extended his arms forward as if expecting a gift.
That is the most absurd thing I have ever heard. If you fail, I give you everything, ha 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 ha.
Suddenly the king fell silent, and then burst into a laughter so loud it shook the walls.
You've done it, boy. You've done it. I am laughing. Come closer, and let me have a good look at the one who made King Despondent laugh.
He motioned to Cunning to come forward, Good Humour and the king. The king embraced Cunning with an earnest hug
and he could not believe what he saw. There it was, the royal seal behind the right ear. He stammered, looking at Cunning in shock.
Do you know who you are?
He asked.
Yes, I am Good Humour of Prosperity, and you are my father, he replied.
Why did you not tell me this straight away?
The king asked. I could not. You would not have believed me. You would have had me tossed out of the castle. I could not risk that,
said Good Humour. The king paused and thought.
Indeed I would have. Indeed I would have. I had lost hope in finding you, and became despondent years ago. So do tell, my son, what made you so sure your plan would work?
The king inquired.
Well, I knew I only had one chance, so I used every bit of cunning I had in me and trusted in faith, relying on my true self, Good Humour said.
Faith? How is this? Faith has been here with me for quite some time now. How is it you counseled with Faith?
The king asked.
I saw him with you in the lake of reflection after I realized who I really am. I could hear what he was telling you, Good Humour replied, and began to laugh. It was all that and a bit of common sense.
Common sense? How so?
Said the king. Good Humour smiled.
You shall see soon, but for now, take me to my mother. I wish to see her.
Son, there is something I should tell you.
The king began.
I already know, father. Take me to her now, please. And so the king did as Good Humour asked. She is even more beautiful than the image of my dreams, Good Humour said.
She has not aged one day since she fell asleep. It was as if she became frozen in time.
Good Humour took her hand. She feels cold, he said, as he bent and kissed her cheek.
Aye,
said the king.
Mother, I am home, said Good Humour.
It's no use. She can't hear you. I have tried talking to her every day, all these years. She does not move, she just lays there.
The king said.
Mother, it is Good Humour, he said as he bent and kissed her cheek again. Look!
Her lips move.
Good Humour.
She speaks. She speaks.
The king danced around the room, and so it was that Queen Charity awoke from her long slumber, and the king became generous again. Prosperity was restored. Common sense made it safely to the kingdom and found Good Humour with the king and queen. She was invited to live in Splendour Castle and accepted. All the knowledge of cunning, as well as that of common sense, was recorded and stored in the library at Share. Indeed, Prosperity did thrive once more, but with a new light that shone, never to be deceived again.
As for what became of Deception, he received word of Good Humour's return and left Misery in a fury. Last it was heard he was caught by the giant Woe, crossing the mountains of sorrow.
But that is another story.
The end. Or perhaps the beginning.